It's the Valley's Pure Rock, Laser 99.3. It's Quinn and Cantera.
724. Normally we do a reality check here, but instead we want to bring on Democratic presidential candidate, former Vermont Governor Howard Dean is on the Laser Morning Show. Good morning, Mr. Dean.
Good morning to you.
Thank you very much for coming on this morning. We realize how busy you are.
Absolutely.
Happy to do it.
Governor Dean, the size of Vermont, its population, I think, somewhere around 608,000 back in this 2000 census. Does that make people question your ability to govern?
I don't think so, really. Bill Clinton went through all this. Jimmy Carter went through this 20 years ago and here 25 years ago when he became president. I think the people who raise those kinds of issues mostly are the people in the opposing camps who would like to use that as an excuse. Actually, I think it might make me a better president because those guys are all from Washington. They're all used to having their campaigns financed by insurance companies and pharmaceutical companies and finance companies, and I think that's why we don't have health insurance in this country, because there are too many special interests on both sides.
Not to mention, wasn't Coolidge from Vermont originally?
That's true.
He was actually governor of Massachusetts first.
Yep.
But he was born in Vermont.
Plymouth, Vermont, something like that.
Right.
It's Laser 99.3. We have the pleasure to talk to Governor Howard Dean, who's running for the Democratic nod. Does the media, Mr. Dean, late in the race focus too much on poll numbers, and what issues have not received enough attention as we head into the New Hampshire primary?
Interestingly, one of the things that hasn't, one of the set of issues that hadn't gotten much attention, which I spent some time on yesterday, are women's issues. The issues that things like domestic violence, things like equal pay for equal work, those things have been pretty much neglected throughout the campaign. I do think the media tends to focus on horse race questions and less on policy questions, which I think is too bad.
Did you never expected to maintain that gigantic lead you had so early in the campaign process? Did you?
No, I didn't, and that actually hurt us a lot because we got a tremendous pounding from all our opponents and the media. That was tough. Being in the supposed front runner position. I mean, voters like to decide who the front runner is, and they don't like it when the newspapers and the magazines and so forth do.
Yeah.
So we took a fall in Iowa, and that's largely why.
Let me ask you this. We're on the horn here with Howard Dean. It's a Quinn and Cantera Laser 99.3. And talking about women voters, and women voters specifically in New Hampshire being a big part of the undecided voting population. How do you think you're going to do with women voters up there? And how important is your wife, and has she become to your current campaign?
I think she's been great. She I always knew that if I ran for president, she was going to have to be out on the stump, talking about issues and letting people know something about me. Because although my kids are totally off bounds, as the Bush kids were in the Clinton and Chelsea Clinton, which I think is appropriate, people do need to get to know your wife because it says something about who you are in terms of what kind of a woman that you would marry and that would marry you. So she's been terrific, and she's been an unexpected star. She's a physician, and she has a practice, and we have a son at home who's a senior in high school, so she's really going to stay home and not campaign very much, but she has campaigned, and she's been incredibly successful.
She nearly brought a tear to my eye over the weekend. Just watching her give you the support that someone who you love deserves, it was actually kind of nice to see.
Oh, she's been fantastic, and she's been really a star. People love her. It's just great.
How was the reaction from your ABC primetime special late last week? That must have helped.
It was so good that we actually distributed 50,000 copies of it throughout to undecided voters and
no kidding.
Core voters in New Hampshire. I thought she was just terrific.
It's Howard Dean on the telephone. We've got 2 more minutes with him. Whose idea was it quickly to do Letterman? Did you sign off on that?
I did. Why, you thought that was...
No, I think it's a good move. I
thought it was good, too. I've never done that before. But, I think we were getting a lot of flack for the speech in Iowa, which I actually thought wasn't a bad speech. It wasn't very presidential, but it was really designed to rev up 3,500 young people waving American flags.
You don't even have to clarify that with us,
Quinn,
okay?
Mr. Dean, loved that speech, by the way.
But anyway, and so I thought, okay, the media is giving me a lot of flack about it. I'll just laugh at it. I think when you laugh at yourself, that always improves the matters, and certainly improved my disposition.
If you had a time machine, would you replace that last scream or any part of that speech with anything?
I wouldn't have done it at the time. I wouldn't have replaced it because it was all about the audience there. One thing I don't do as well as some of the other guys from Washington, the more slick folks, is I basically speak to the audience that's in front of me, and when you're really a super politician, you realize you've got to speak to the television, not to the people in front of you. But I have this incredibly intense connection with the people in front of me. Would I rather have not been made fun of 637 times in a week on all the media? Sure, but it was really there for those kids who came out and worked their hearts out and were a little disappointed that we finished third in Iowa.
It's former Vermont Governor Howard Dean running for the Democratic presidential nomination on the telephone. You got another part to that question?
Well, no, not to that question, but I wasn't sure if you were finished up here. Go ahead.
I'm curious because the separation of church and state is just the gap is gonna grow wider and wider as this country progresses. And I want to know where you stood on the controversy of the Ten Commandments being ordered out of the Alabama courthouse this summer.
Yeah, I don't think the Ten Commandments belongs in public buildings because I suppose you're a religion that doesn't have anything to do with the Ten Commandments. I think that I don't get excited about stuff like saying one nation under God in the pledge. I think you can be too much of a purist, although I understand the arguments of atheists. There's people like, folks like that. But I do really think that the Constitution says the government shall not establish a religion. I think to have a symbol of any religion in a public building is probably contrary to the Constitution, and I can understand why.
But if we take it down that road, and I like your stance, but we got to look at the money, we got to look at the pledge. There's all these things with God on them.
I agree, and we can't go too far. My idea is that life is a balance, and right now we have an administration that's really swung to the far right and favored corporate interests over American interests, like the Medicare prescription bill, which really helps the pharmaceuticals, and the insurance industry and doesn't help seniors at all.
The waters are very muddy right now, it seems, politically.
Yeah, so I think we've gone too far, and we ought to go back towards the middle. But on stuff like the money and the pledge, I think you can just go too far with that. I wouldn't strip off, the references to God and
yeah. Can I ask you one last question here? Here in Massachusetts, we clear something like 40 acres of land a day, and Vermont, one of the last jewels, if you will, of this country. How would you take your environmental views up in Vermont and parlay them into the rest of the country?
Well, interestingly enough, the attitude towards open land and conservation is very different in the East than it is in the West, where they have a lot of public land and they wish they had less. Here we wish we had more. I'm going to do what we did in Vermont. I'm going to set aside a lot of money for states like Massachusetts and New Jersey, Rhode Island, who really want to preserve land, to go ahead and preserve it forever. There's not a lot of open land in those states that I just named, and you really want more. And out west, it's a whole different thing. But I really do think that in the east, where the population pressures are so enormous that we need to save some open land, and western Massachusetts is a beautiful example of that.
Yeah,
it's so different than the eastern portion of the state.
Absolutely,
it really is.
One more minute, and we'll let you go. It's Governor Howard Dean on the telephone. Quickly, who do you like in the Super Bowl on Sunday?
Nice.
The Pats, naturally.
Okay,
all right.
and
although I'll pay for that next week in South Carolina.
Yeah, well, the only one who will remind you of it will be Carrie, and don't worry about that.
And to the laser listeners here, what kind of music does a straight-laced guy like Howard Dean listen to?
You don't want to know.
Come on.
That's all right.
Yeah, we do.
Wycliffe John, who probably...
I think he should be president. I love that guy.
He's great, and he's a total hip-hopper, but his songs are kind of commentary about social responsibility. I think they're fantastic.
Well, you're just doing really well with me right now. I respect
and then
that.
the Grateful Dead, who I didn't like much when I was a kid, but I tuned into a public broadcasting station the other day that had a concert on. I had no idea that Jerry Garcia was as good as he was until I...
They're even better when you're high.
Oh God! Yeah. Well, thank you. That I haven't done for many years.
Quickly.
Well, thanks. Yeah.
Your son's a hell of a hockey player. Is he gonna go to a Division I school and play hockey?
He's been recruited by some Division III places, and I'm not sure he's going to make Division I, but we're kind of talking about what to do about that right now.
Well, good.
Best of luck, Governor, and thank you so much for taking some extra time with us. And we wish you all the
luck. How did you guys know that?
Well, we do a lot of research.
Yeah, we know the next 24, 48 hours is going to be a little busy for you.
Yeah, it will.
Yeah, very good.
Hey,
Howard
Dean, a lot.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
Take care. There he goes. Oh, it's a pleasure to talk to that guy.
Really nice tone to him this morning.